What is yoga is a really big question, and I doubt I can give you a satisfying answer because it's very complex. The most annoying answer is you have to explore for yourself what it means to you. But let's just go the normal way of people, especially in the West. Most people go to yoga classes, asana classes, that's how I started, and I stayed for years in the physical part of the practice, which felt really, really good. But over time you notice these little cues and other stories and you're like, wait, there's more to it than just going onto the yoga mat. So that's the point where we have to consider the traditional background of yoga. All yoga is based in ancient sacred texts called the Vedas. Now, Hindu religion and Hindu philosophy both came out of the Vedas, and I think maybe that's the big difference. We have Western philosophies, and all philosophy considers the human existence and reality and the nature of things, or it gives you a theory or an attitude of how to behave in this life. That's what philosophy is. But in the West, we lost the spiritual point. We fell in love with logic and science, and we approach everything exactly that way. While in India, the tradition stayed the same. It stayed spiritual. That means all yoga considers that you have a soul or a true self, your true nature. And it is possible, according to the scriptures, to realize your true nature. What does it mean in a practical sense? That life doesn't affect you the same way as it did before. So a part of just the physical well-being, you are also considering a sort of mental hygiene. Life can be very stressful. There's a lot of suffering in our lives, but most of that suffering we create ourselves. It's not just the things happening to us, but us holding on to a lot of things. So traditionally, yogic practices are focused on meditation, on becoming still or finding peace within your mind. When we become more still in our mind, when all the sort of fluctuations calm down a little bit, we have a better chance to realize our true self, to really hear within what it is that we need, rather than what we want or what other people want from us. And that knowledge, that contemplation, that thinking about things that way, will bring your asana practice into a different level. Because I think we all know the feeling in asana practice when we're still sort of competing with our neighbors or just following whatever the teacher tells us to do, and there's nothing more involved. So in the same way as all risotto dishes are rice dishes, not every rice dish is risotto. You know what I mean? The asana practice can be very nourishing, can be very wonderful, but we can elevate it to something else. And then every time you step onto the mat and you consider other things, for example, your true self or something less ambition and ego-driven, then we have the chance to do this also in our normal life. The real practice starts when we come off the mat and step into life and have relationships with other people. These asana practices, even meditation, all these different practices are there for you to realize your true self, to slowly let go of the baggage of what you don't need anymore. That's what yoga is about. But you shouldn't get too hung up on the word God or spiritual, because really yoga is open for everybody. The main book that modern yoga is considering is called the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali. And even though it's all about this realization of true nature or this union with the universe or God, however you want to see it, Patanjali didn't use the word God, I think, ever, or only once or twice in the whole book, because it's just you and your existence. So don't get too hung up on words. But the base is a spiritual philosophy, and this is really traditionally what we are working towards, samadhi, or the union of God. And for that we need a strong understanding of ourself, which most of us are not really into, and we are trying to distract ourselves with work and with Netflix and with life and with sports and even with yoga classes. We can distract ourselves from just becoming still. Consider yourself being alone in a room. Nothing to distract you. No TV, no books, nothing to write, nothing to listen to. It's just you and your own mind. How long can you stay comfortable like this? I think that's an interesting question for these corona times. This is what we mean with solitude, your ability to be with your own thoughts. And as most of us are very uncomfortable with, yoga consider this a worthwhile practice, like meditation or mindfulness. Because over time, in that stillness, you will learn more and more about yourself, even though that's a very challenging endeavor. The longer you practice, the more you will notice that your practice is very alive. It will change, it will move, it will flow, it will grow, it becomes smaller, and it will definitely go towards different directions, things that really grab your attention for a while. Maybe practices like chanting, or who knows what, any kind of practice that helps your self-understanding. And that's exactly how it should be, because you have to find your own answers, and all these different parts, all these different methods are just that. They are just tools to do so. It's not about what you're doing, it's about who is doing it and why we are doing these things and how we approach these things and what the intention is. That sounds maybe a little out there, but that is my attempt to answer this very, very complex question. I hope that helped, and wish you a wonderful day. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit more.